So first, I want to thank Gary for coming out with these plans. They're really cool, simple to do, it looks like, but you know, yeah, you can make them as nice as you want to make them or change them as much as you would like, and you know, you can add your own flavor to it. I bought three of his plans, and this is one of the sweeter ones that I'm gonna enjoy. I really like the hull shape, and the sails are just they're fantastic. I'm really gonna enjoy the sailing this thing, but I did email him and he answered me right back regarding doing a couple of changes to this thing here, and the big question was whether I could round these out and not mess the boat up too much so that it'd have a round bottom hull. And he said that that would probably be okay. The building would be different, but essentially I'd be safe using a 1 inch radius on these corners here. So to me that means you would find a circle or bottle cap or whatever that's 2 inches, and then snug it up against the edges here, and then you could draw a line across it and remove that amount of space. I think one of the things he was concerned about was the volume that this hull encapsulates. If you took too much off of it, then you're losing a lot of air space, and so that might change things, or the way it slides over the water and so forth. But um, I thought of doing something a little bit different, not varying too far from what he was suggesting. What I ended up deciding to do was basically doing as he said, finding that line, that arc that goes here. I didn't draw it out, but I kept it in my mind's eye. And so somewhere in between there, I would cut through this. But from point A to point B, I decided that rather than keep it flat and then rounding it out, that I would push it out in the middle just a hair bit. So basically, I want to make somewhat of a circle here, but I want to keep this point and this point and find a point somewhere around here. Bottom line is I ended up buckling this out here just a just a bit, and then I cut into the rib, and then keeping this point and this point in mind, I kind of went around this way, and I barely popped that out. So this is just slight but long, obviously, and then in the end, I ended up with a pretty round shape here, and I think it looked okay. Um, in the real world, if I were to put these ribs together and then try and do that, more than likely, if I ran a wire or board like this across from the front to the back end of the boat, um, I would probably find that some of these ribs weren't matching very well with, so I'd have to, you know, re remeasure, regauge, whatever. But anyways, for this model, it actually looked okay, and I think we're going to get by with it. So going forward, I'm going to show you what I did. At the end of the film, I'll have this model, and it'll be encapsulated with a white T-shirt. That's all I could find at the time, but that will give you a real good idea of what it would look like if it was painted or a full hull. Again, keep in mind that this is a real crappy build. I took 4 hours to do this or whatever, and hot glue, you don't want to use hot glue for anything that you're going to keep. And you definitely do not want to build your boat the way I have here for this demonstration, because it just won't work so well. You're better off keeping Gary's design in mind as to how to put it together. Um, Again, I'll have to do this a little bit differently than his, because I am doing these little boards here instead of the ply boards. But we'll see how we get by with that later. Alright, so the purpose of this video is basically just to get an idea of what this model would look like if we were to round out the hull. it's roughly what it would look like if it was the real thing. I just printed this out to 18 inches off of a regular printer. Wanted to find that sweet shape there. I would not build it like this whatsoever. He's got a particular way to put it together, and I would stick to that. This is just to get an idea of what the shape of this thing looks like. I took this line here, which is close to flat, but it still has a nice shape to it. Anyways, so I took that backboard and I went ahead and ran it across this point here, and then I cut slits in it and slipped the ribs in there, and I went from there, added a piece there. I faked a whole lot of this out. I should have added a backbone here. There's nothing there, so it was difficult to shape these out. I either brought this too far out, or it's a little bit high, because this right here is this last ribbon here is way too deep, and the arc has to be it's an extreme arc, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, although you are looking for that little shape at the tail end where it comes up out of the water. It came out better than I thought it would, as far as it being lined up, but obviously there's flaws in it. Okay, so to get this done quickly, I used a hot glue gun, and I just poured that stuff in here, and however I was able to put it together, that's what I did. I also used pins, sewing pins, wherever I could, and again, like I said, I gooped that stuff on there. So basically I got this thing done in about 4 hours. I would say about 4 hours. Came out not too bad, but I wanted to compare the two sides. And when you look at the rest of the film, I'll show you the like I said, you got to keep in mind that it's not shaped exactly the way it's going to be, but it's a close resemblance to it. I've drawn the bulkheads out. I removed the round top of them so I could lay them down flat to work on the side. There is a slight arc on the top that we're also missing. So besides the arc here, we're missing a slight arc that works like that. Don't want to go past this point. I want to come out here somewhere. And here, I want to, maybe it wouldn't hurt to do that kind of thing on these corners. Well, not the bottom, but just the corner there. I'm going to go just a little behind this line. So we'll start at this point here. Bring it out and then back in. And then bring it out again. So I will end up with some round shapes like that. As long as I keep it somewhat round, it should work out pretty good. We'll see how this goes. If I were doing this right, what I would do is I would do the same thing, rack these all up like ribs, and then run a wire from one point to the other, and I would find that some of these are off a little bit as the arc goes around, and I would adjust that measurement. But try not to be articulate here. Again, this is really dirty. If in fact it comes out nice and I want to do some detail work, then I will go do that. These are cut out properly. These have to be, I'm going to sand these down to the right shape. Okay, this is what I've come up with. Alright, I just drew these center lines by hand. They're not perfect because they're just done by hand. I'm going to do this real quick. There's your backbone there. These are all going to slip in there. They'll all be the same level here. Again, that's not the way it's designed. This is just a test, only a test. Testing, testing, testing. Okay, if I had thought this out, I would have remembered to add the chin there, so I'll probably have to cut a slit here and add a thin board the same size that we have there. So I'm probably going to leave a little, this board here, I'm probably going to leave it a little bit extended here, and then I'll have to figure out how to shape it where so it matches the rest of this line here. There's the shape with the added meat on the bottom. We'll butt this right up against this edge here. Okay, don't judge me. There's a lot of things I'm doing wrong here, but generally speaking, that's what we're kind of sort of sketching out. That's about as straight as we're going to get these. It's not going to be perfect, but we'll figure it out.